Checking out a brand new paddle that just arrived. This is the first time I've had a non-Warner paddle in a long time. When I started, I had an Aquabound, paddled a Powerhouse for a while. I paddled a Stikine and ended up with a Shogun, which is what I've been paddling for quite a while now. The other day on the river, this super nice guy by the name of Stu from up in Canada joined us for a lap on the white salmon. And he had a G-Power and let me borrow it, and I was extremely impressed with how it paddled, so I started looking into it more. I actually got home that night. Wade Harrison had just put up a video reviewing that paddle, which I'll link to in the description, and so I started kind of down the rabbit hole of looking into it more. A little bit of a wild goose chase, both to get one and to get information about them. So there are two distributors that reach the US. One of them is based in Canada and does Canada and the United States, and the other one is based in the US. Wade had put me in contact with the guy in the US. His name is Alan, and he's who I ended up getting the paddle from. He's with TCG Sport. I believe they're based out of North Carolina. I had reached out to him, hadn't heard anything for like a day or two, so I ended up reaching out to G-Power. They put me in contact with the other distributor. His name is, I think it's pronounced Michal. It's M-I-C-H-A-L. I think he's up near Ottawa. I was working with him for a while and then kind of didn't hear back from him and ended up hearing from Alan. And so Alan was able to kind of answer my questions, and I ended up ordering it from him. The main reason I went with him is he had it in stock. And so I was able to get it inside of a week. With Michal, it sounds like they were going to be having to maybe produce it in Poland and then send it over. I was told 3 to 4 weeks, and it sounded like maybe even longer. We're going to take a look at this paddle, and once I get some time on the water, I will do a follow-up review of how I'm feeling about it. I ended up getting the bag for it. Wade's review talked about the bag being really nice, and it definitely is. So yeah, it looks like a nice bag. It's got a divider in it, which is really cool. Mine is the medium blade size, which was part of the decision that I was having to make. I was told that the large blade is really large, like that most people are not going to use that, and that the medium blade is what the vast majority of people are going to end up using. So that's the medium blade size, and then you can see the metal tip here starting right there, and that's stainless. Build quality and color look fantastic on this. They do come with a serial number, made in Poland. The shaft here has delineations of 0 up to 10 centimeters. The website says that you should paddle this only up to 5 centimeters longer than whatever the minimum you purchased was, but you can test it up to 10 centimeters. I ended up getting a 200, and that way I can go from 200 up to 205, and then you can obviously adjust the feather. One of the big questions that I was trying to get answered was about slippage. The guy from Canada who let me borrow his, he mentioned that his had actually slipped on him a number of times, so if he was paddling and then hit a rock, it was shortening up on him. And so I kind of wanted to get to the bottom of that and figure out what was going on. They made 2 different versions of these in aluminum. The first one was aluminum and it had just a screw that held it, and the second one was aluminum and it had a lever like this one, and then the last one is this composite one. And according to Alan at TCG, the composite one is the most reliable and the one that he recommends. I was told by different people that if you have slippage, there are a few different things you can do. I think Michal mentioned that you could potentially sand this a little bit to rough it up. Alan didn't seem to think that was necessary. He basically said you should just adjust the tightness of this, so how much clamping force it has. And here's a close-up view of that cuff. You can kind of see how that works. And it's got a little bit of a bump right here to, I guess, protect it from getting knocked up. See that? Okay, one other thing I want to point out on this cuff, they call it the QNect composite. It does say here, Kayak Sport. is making it. I believe that's the company that Alan said was out of Finland. Yeah, the one thing I'm not super stoked on is that it looks like it basically starts at, I think, 35, maybe not even. So they're giving you from 30 to 90 as your feather. I don't know why they don't just continue down to 0. I guess you can assume that the dividing line here is going to be 0. But if you wanted to run at like 15 degrees or something, you're just going to be guessing. If you follow the blade down the straight line, the 0 degree is where this line is. So if you set it like I have it right now, that would be at 0. And then if you twist it so that this first mark matches this line right here, then that would be at 30. Working hard. Count Cameo. I think I might have missed it, but the full name of this paddle is the G-Power Twister X Creek. Apparently they used to make a different twister that was the SL for the Sick line, and I think they beefed this paddle up a little bit to make it more of an all-around creeker versus a racing paddle. McCall was mistakenly under the impression that they had 2 stiffnesses that you could choose from, and that's not the case in the Twister. Some of their other paddles it is. You can pick between a medium and a hard stiffness. He said medium is best for most and hard is extremely hard. And then when I ended up talking to Alan said that with the X Creek, it's just 1 stiffness, and that would qualify as a medium stiffness for G-Power, but that medium stiffness would be stiffer than like your stiffest Werner. In Wade's review, he talked about how he weighed his, I think he had a large blade if I remember right, and I think he said it was maybe 1090, and the spec on the website is way lower than that. I think for the large, G-Power lists it as like 880, and for the medium they listed at like 840, and maybe they're talking about a 1-piece paddle, but I know it's not going to come in anywhere near that low. As you can see, I've got a towel just to help balance it, and it is tiered. Okay, so that's balanced. It's 1033, 1034, so definitely nowhere near the 840 that they're listing on their website. I think they should be more specific about their different paddles. I didn't expect it to be that light, but it is kind of not cool that you're gonna just say one weight on there and it's 200 grams off essentially. Let's compare that 1034, we'll say 1035-ish, to my Werner Shogun. It does have vinyl tape on both sides, so not quite fair, and it also has some Gorilla tape in the middle just as a backup for torn gaskets and whatnot. And we're at 1132, so essentially 100 grams heavier. You know, I don't know what it would be without the vinyl and the Gorilla tape, but I'm sure there's not 100 grams of that on there. So the G-Power is definitely lighter, and according to what Alan's telling me, significantly stiffer as well. The thing I can tell just moving this around is that this paddle is much lighter out here on the blades, so the swing weight is much lower. I mean, it is 100 grams lighter right now, but it feels much, much lighter. You can see the difference in the blade shapes and the shaft. Obviously the Shogun's a straight shaft. And then another look at them, this time from the backside. Pretty big difference here. Looking at the back face, the G-Power is extremely smooth, where the Werner has the slots running down here. Wade commented on that the back face, it does not like to have pressure applied to it. It's funny because the guy who lent me his to try on the river, like the one thing he actually pointed out and wanted me to try was how much power it had on the back face. So we'll see. I messed around with it. I didn't really notice anything problematic, but I was just using it for a minute or two, so time will tell on that one. There's not a ton of info on these paddles, so anyway, thought I would try to get a little bit more out there. Once I've had a chance to paddle it, I will definitely put up a review. I've never had a 2-piece. I've never had a crank shaft where it's a forward shaft design. Guess I've never had a paddle from outside the US either. Seems super high quality. A big shout out to Alan at TCG Sport. Check him out if you're interested in getting one. And then I also had some great conversations with McCall, and he is up at, it's SMS Sport, and he also sells Lettman paddles, so he can answer your questions about G-Power and Lettmans if you've got them. All right, thanks for watching. See you on the river.